From Nutrien Ag Solutions, I'm Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Canadian Prairie weather story for Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. Coming to you a couple hours late here. I apologize for that. A lot of active weather in the central U.S. that had to preempt the video here. Severe weather and dangerous fire weather conditions from the plains into the Midwest. Had a huge field fire just about 10 to 15 miles away from where I live, where our office is here in Champaign, Illinois. Certainly not, impossible to get that kind of thing, but some pretty rare dangerous fire weather conditions here across the Midwest on the heels of that drought and some very strong winds ahead of an incoming storm system. Now, as we kind of refocus on the Canadian Prairie, the reason I have to kind of preempt things as far as you guys go is you're going to be pretty quiet for the next 10 days. The pattern really becomes pretty active, really unsettled across North America, but it's a storm track that really rain shadows the prairie. You're going to have some areas of low pressure track across the region. You have some chances for some showers and some very light snow at times over the next 7 to 10 days, but you can see very clearly the active storm track coming in from the Pacific. A lot of that moisture being absorbed there as the storms come over the top of the Rockies there, dumping it on the coastal areas, higher elevations of British Columbia down to the Pacific Northwest, and then the other hot spot there from the central and southern U.S. into the Great Lakes. So certainly the chance for some flurries. I didn't get the bullet points updated here, I guess, on the other slides, but flurries, no big snow over the next 10 days. This is a current map there. And then use your imagination here. Temperature swings, mild overall. I don't know that I would call it super mild right now, but trending more mild as we get into days 5 to 10. Now, certainly some cooler air coming in now. Temperatures below freezing in a lot of corners of Alberta and Saskatchewan. A little more mild, closer to or a couple degrees above freezing as you get into the Winnipeg area, parts of southeastern Manitoba. But check out all the warmth across the bottom right there. Where I live, temperatures in the mid-20s right now. Big contrast there. The mid-20s in the Midwest, below freezing across the Canadian Prairie. That's, a sign that we've got a very active jet stream running right through those air masses. So it is active across the central U.S. That's where we got that forecast potential for some severe thunderstorms, a late season risk for severe weather across the Midwest, parts of the plains, but then on the north side of the storm track, relatively quiet. You can see the showers, some thunderstorms in the bottom right of your screen. You can see some showers and some thunderstorms on the far left, coming in from the Pacific, parts of coastal British Columbia, the higher elevations seeing some snow today, and then some heavier coastal rains in parts of Washington and Oregon. But we are quiet across the prairie, and that's really going to be the theme over the next 7 days. Again, a very active pattern across areas to our west, coastal areas, and then off to the south across the U.S. into the Great Lakes, parts of eastern Canada. That is where the active storm track is right now. This is your next 7 days. Here's the next 10 days from the European AI forecast system. And here's the pattern. Again, we kind of just reload what you see right here, which is areas of low pressure diving in from the Pacific into the western U.S. Coming in here across the central U.S., we get what we call lee-side cyclogenesis. We develop a surface area of low pressure that brings that warm, humid air northward from the Gulf of Mexico, sets the stage for showers and thunderstorms. Active weather here right on that contrast as these areas of low pressure, these deep troughs just kind of lift in then across the Great Lakes. So let's animate this. I said, let's animate this, go back here and start off on our Wednesday, October 30th. This is the system that has that severe weather risk today and tonight, along with the dangerous risk for fire weather conditions across parts of the Midwest and the plains. This system lifts out over the next 24 hours. We reload. Another storm system coming in here late week into the weekend. We just kind of stay north of the storm track, though, across the prairie. You see these storms diving in into the southwestern United States. You'll see another one here lifting in. There we go. It's diving and then lifting. So here is Sunday night into Monday morning. We're in the first full week of November. The active area just stays right here as these troughs dive in across the southwest and then lift into the plains. That's when we get that cyclogenesis. We develop an area of low pressure right here in the central plains. So the risk for severe weather and heavy rain accompanies that area of low pressure across the plains into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes. We are north of that here across the prairie. We get some ridging that builds in. Your temperature is going to continue to do a bit of a roller coaster ride before we have another forecast, trough to dive in here around November 11th. This is just a very active pattern. It's going to become rather hard to predict. It's volatile. There's a lot going on. So with a pattern like that, you have higher confidence in the first couple of storms, but we know that, those first couple of storms are going to shake things up such that the route for the next storm systems on the backside there, maybe in days 5 to 10, days 10 to 15, it's going to be adjusted here based on how things unfold. So it's a volatile pattern that I start to kind of lose specifics and lose confidence in as we get into the middle part of November. I'll show you that animation of the forecast. Precipitation the next couple of days, taking it through. This will be Thursday, Friday, and now Saturday into Saturday evening. Quiet across the prairie, some cloud cover, maybe some very light flurries, especially if you're in the north parts of Edmonton. Maybe some light flurries for your Friday and Saturday, but pretty quiet across the prairie. This is your total precipitation. Again, some very light flurries possible here, but really a dry next 3 to 4 days across the region. Now, as we look at the European model, this is the deterministic one. So again, we lose confidence later on into the model run, but here's where you can see these storms just kind of diving in off to the left and then lifting off to the right side of the screen here. This is a pattern that really kind of, we just get passed up on. It's not a good pattern for significant moisture across the prairie. We see the first area of low pressure kind of moving. This is the one that brings the severe weather risk today. It lifts into the Great Lakes as we get into tomorrow morning. We see another area of low pressure kind of try to move into the prairie as we get into Saturday and Sunday. That's when you can see some of those light flurries, maybe a couple of raindrops across southern portions of the prairie. Sunday night into Monday. Next area of low pressure comes in here. This will be on Monday afternoon, November 4th. Heavy snow across the higher elevations of British Columbia and far western Alberta. You see what happens though. This system is just moisture rich as it comes in from the Pacific on Monday morning. And then as that area of low pressure, the low itself makes its way into Alberta, but the moisture is wrung out as the storm comes up over the top of those mountains. We just squeeze the moisture out so that now we have an area of low pressure moving through southern Alberta into southern Saskatchewan on Tuesday, but it's moisture starved. It has had its moisture squeezed out of it, so we get light flurries, light showers that just do not amount to much, maybe some higher accumulations in some of the higher elevations, some of the hills here in southwestern Saskatchewan. Maybe stacking up a couple of inches or something like that. But by and large, not a moisture-rich storm system. We're quiet, maybe windy at times as we watch areas of low pressure try to make their way in. We see the same thing kind of repeat here. This is November 9th. We're 10 days out, November 8th and 9th. We see another big area of low pressure trying to come in. It again has its moisture squeezed out, so it'll come into the prairie or the northern plains in one way or another, but it's going to be moisture starved when it does so. Your next week of total snow accumulation, again, maybe some of the higher elevations picking up a little bit more, getting into that, couple of inch range, but otherwise you're looking at a trace, maybe a light coating from some of these flurries over the next 7 days. Zooming out, looking at the next 10 days of total precipitation, you really see the impact of those storms. The repeated storms coming in across coastal portions of British Columbia, a lot of snow in the higher elevations, a lot of rain in coastal areas there, stacking up, anywhere from 200 to 300 millimeters of precipitation over the next 10 days. Same is true as you make your way into the plains, into the Midwest, and the Great Lakes of the U.S. That's where we're talking about anywhere from 50 to 150 millimeters of precipitation over the next 10 days. Sandwiched in between that, though, the northern high plains into the Canadian Prairie. Areas of low pressure traversing the region, they are moisture starved. You get anywhere from nothing to a trace, maybe 5 millimeters of precipitation, 10 on the high side in some of these areas, very localized areas, maybe picking up something on the higher side like that. Again, 5 to 10 millimeters over the next 10 days. That's the high amount across the prairie there. Just about everyone else, probably a trace to a couple of millimeters. Now, where I lose some confidence here is what's going to happen with temperatures as we get into mid-month. A pattern like this that continues to send areas of low pressure diving in to the western U.S., seems to be one that ultimately, as we get into mid-November, maybe 2 to 3 weeks from now, could start to work some colder winter air in. You see the AI forecast system kind of trying to suggest that, but it's not a real strong signal. And when I compare it with the European ensemble on the right, the ensemble leans a little bit warmer days 10 to 15. That would be getting into November 10th through the 15th. And then I pull up the GFS ensemble, and we got the same thing. So it's a pattern that makes me start to think about some cold air working its way into days, 10 to 20, something like that. But there's not a real strong signal to back that up from the models right now. So maybe we talk a week from now and I have higher confidence and I've got some model data to support that. Maybe a colder back half of the month of November, just something to kind of think about right now. But the model is really trying to hold on to some more mild air through the middle of the month. You see that reflected here. Calgary, your next 10 days, highs in the middle single digits for the next 7 days or so, back into 10 to 12 degrees for the high as we get into the middle and late part of next week. Edmonton, a very similar look here. Saskatoon, very similar as well. Shot of colder air heading into the early part of the week, warming back up mid to late next week. Regina, very similar picture here. And then Winnipeg, you're doing that roller coaster ride. 5 degrees today, 9 on Sunday, 4 on Wednesday, back up to 9 on Saturday. So a volatile pattern, but one that we're going to continue to have to look out into the long range for any sort of significant moisture.